Marley Bird YouTube channel, brought to you by Red Hot Yarns. In this video, I will show you how to make the motif for the Marley's Granny Square cardigan. Now, don't be fooled, this isn't your typical granny square, but these motifs are often called granny squares. My friend Robin Chichula is actually the person who informed me on that, and so that's why it's called a granny square. We are going to construct this motif in the round, and we will, on round 2, I think it is, get the corners established so that we actually get a square. Once I show you how to make the full motif, I will then show you how to make a second motif and begin to join it to the first motif, and then so on and so forth. So that way you can join as you go, which means there is no seaming. Pretty fantastic, isn't it? So without further ado, let's make sure that you have the pattern, and the link to that is right down there in the video description box below. And while you're down there, smash that like button, as my kids say, to let other people know you enjoyed this video. Once you have your pattern, go ahead and grab some scrap yarn to start off with. I want you to practice the motif with some scrap yarn to begin with, so that way you can learn the stitches, kind of get the feel for it. Once you've done that, let's go ahead and start off with your actual yarn for the garment, okay? So let's begin with scrap yarn to start. Go get your pattern and your materials. When you look at the pattern, you will notice that there are both written instructions for the motif and a chart for the motif. In the video, I'm going to refer mainly to the chart, which is the same as the written instructions, because I really want to help those of you out there who really feel like you're handcuffed to the written instructions. I want you to understand how helpful a chart can be in really helping you see where the stitches need to go and how they're going to connect with one another. If that's not your cup of tea, don't worry, the written instructions are there, as I mentioned, so that you can follow along no matter what. Now let's go ahead and grab your hook and your scrap yarn and get started. I'm going to use this really great color of yarn right here. It is called Sunset, and we're going to take a look at the chart, and you can see right here in the center is a series of ovals, and those ovals represent your starting chain. One great thing about this chart is that each round is designated by a different color, making it easier for you to see what stitches you are going to be doing for each round, and you can designate the stitches that were done in the prior rounds or the after rounds. It just makes it a little bit easier. To start off, we will begin with a slip knot. If you've never done a slip knot before, place the tail of your yarn in the palm of your hand. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your forefinger and middle finger, and when you come back up, cross that over. Rotate your hand over and then go underneath the first loop and grab the back loop and off. What you've done here is created a slip knot. Once you have the slip knot, it's simply a matter of putting the stitches on your hook. So we are going to take our hook, go around our yarn, grab the yarn, and then pull that through. You want to make sure you do not over tighten that loop you just created, okay? We want to keep it that same size. So you go around the working yarn, grab it, and come through. That's 2 loops or 2 chains so far. You never count the loop on your hook. So we have 1, 2 chains. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we've created our 10 chains right there. And now we need to join to create a ring. So what I will do is come all the way back here to the very first chain I created, stick my hook right into that chain right there, and I will yarn over my hook, pull up a loop through the chain I just stuck my hook into, and then I will pull that through the loop that's on my hook. So that is joined to work in the round. So now I have a little ring right there. And we've just completed the first chain round. So if I'm looking at my chart here, it's the purple section of the chart. I move on to the blue section of the chart, which is next, and you can see right here that little dot in the purple is a slip stitch, okay? So that's what we just did. We joined with a slip stitch. And our next set of instructions say to chain 3. So what I will do is I will go ahead and take my yarn and chain 3, just like normal. The next bit of the instructions, you can see that we have these symbols that are rotated all the way around those 10 chains we created. That's actually a total of 23 double crochets. And if we count this initial chain 3 as a double crochet, we will end up with 24 double crochets. Now we have obviously more stitches than we have chains. So we do not want to put those double crochets in the actual chain. We want to put our hook into that big hole, that big space right there that we created by joining with our slip stitch. So here's what we will do. You yarn over your hook, you go into this big space, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over your hook, draw through 2, yarn over your hook, draw through 2. Then we have to do that again. Yarn over your hook. You'll notice that I'm holding that big space, that big hole right there, just to make it open for me. Go into the space, yarn over your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. So I've just done 2. Let's get a couple more in here so I can show you something really cool. Because you might be thinking to yourself, okay, how am I supposed to get 23 more double crochet in here when it feels like they're all starting to really take up that space? Well, because we're working these double crochets around these chains, we can actually slide them. See how I'm holding those chains and I'm literally just pulling those double crochets along the way? They are literally just sliding along that chain. So now that I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets, I can continue on with my 18 more. Is that right? That's my quick math. I'll go back and count before I'm done. So let's go ahead and get our double crochets. Once you get your 24 double crochet around, it's time to join with a slip stitch. You'll notice in the chart, the slip stitch, once again, is that little dot right there. It's almost invisible. You can think of it as the slip stitch is an invisible stitch, and so is that little dot. You notice that the dot is right up into that third chain of your initial 3 chains. So what we will do here is look for our third chain. So 1, 2, 3. We'll put our hook into the third chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop on our hook. We've now just joined with a slip stitch and we've created our round 1. As we take a look at the chart for round 2, you can see it's sort of in this pink color. And I want you to really pay attention to something here. You'll notice that there's a chain 1 right here, and we will put a single crochet directly into the top of that chain 3 we just joined into. So we're going to put a single crochet into the same stitch we just joined into. Then we'll do a single crochet, a single crochet, a single crochet into this next double, and then we will chain 7. And then we'll put a single crochet into that same double crochet. So in order to make sure we have these corners developed, we need to do those chain 7s. And those chain 7s are made with the single into a stitch, chain 7, a single into that same stitch. So let's get along to that part right now. Here we go. We will start off with our chain 1. We will put our single crochet into that same stitch we just joined into, okay? Now I will do 2 single crochet. So there's 1 into the next double, 1 into the following double. And now in this next one, this is where I'm going to begin my corner. So I put a single, I will chain 7 now. 6 and 7. And I'm going to come back to this same stitch that I did that single crochet and put another single crochet into it. That right there is establishing the start of my corner. Now I continue on and I can see in my chart here, just purely looking at the chart, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single crochet. And then I do the chain 7 again and I put a single into the same one as that 6th one. So let's work our way over to that again. So we have 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 3, 4, 5, and then this one is where we're going to start our next corner. So there's my 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chains. Come back down here and put a single crochet back into that same single crochet. You see how I have 2 corners started here? Now I continue on. If I were to look at the chart, I would see that I have the same thing going on. So we just finished with this one. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, chain 7, and then our next single crochet is in that same one. I'm going to go ahead and finish the chart all the way up to this last chain 7 corner, and then I want to finish off the row with you. So I'm going to get there, you get there too. I just finished my last corner here, and I can see I have 2 spots left for single crochets, and I'm going to pull over my chart here. As I see that this was my last stitch, I have a single into that one, a single into that one, and I join with a slip stitch, which is perfect. That's exactly where I am. So I will put a single into this stitch, a single into this stitch, and then join with the slip stitch. So I'm going to join right here into the very first single crochet I made, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through the loop on my hook, and I've just completed round 2, and you'll notice I'm starting to establish where the corners will take place. We're ready to jump into round 3, which is also the final round. That's right, there's only 3 rounds to this motif. So once we finished round 3 with our initial motif, our first motif, round 3 on our following motifs will be our joining round. So let's see how this motif is made for the first motif, and then I want to show you how you will join the motifs on round 3 on the following motifs. A lot of motifs. I said a lot of motifs. You'll see what I mean. So let's go ahead and take a look at our chart. You can see right here that we begin with our chain 1, and we immediately jump in with a single crochet, 7 chains, and a single crochet all into that first single crochet we joined to. This loop here, it's almost like we're creating a second corner situation, but it's really not going to be, because by the time we fill in these stitches and these stitches, this here is literally just filling in space and making it so it's a point where we can join it to the next square, okay? So we're going to begin by working the same stitch like we did before, and then you'll notice there are no other orange stitches happening until we get over here to where we created our chain 7 from the previous round, correct? What will happen over here is just like when we put our double crochets around those chains at the beginning, we will be placing double crochets around these chains right here at our corners. And right up here at the very top, we're also going to add a picot. All right, so we will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 doubles. We'll do our 7th double, create our picot, and then make 6 more doubles. So it's a lot of action going on, but hey, it's only 3 rounds, right? That's not bad at all. So let's go ahead and jump in. Are you ready? We start off with a chain 1, and we will do a single crochet where we did our join. So it's the same spot you did your join in. Chain 7. Come back to where that single crochet is that we just did and place another single crochet there. Now we will skip all of these stitches right here. We're going to jump all the way over here to where this chain 7 is. And we will do 6 double crochets around those chains, okay? So we go into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Now you've done double crochets enough now that I feel like I don't need to go super slow. So I'm going to get these 6 double crochets complete. So that way we can move on to the next step, which I think is super cool and fun. Learning how to do a little picot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one more. And here's 6. Now, our next double crochet is really going to be literally the corner of our motif here. And it's also going to be the place that we create our picot. So here we go. We're going to yarn over, go into the space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2, yarn over, draw through 2. Now I will chain 3. And I'm going to come back to the top of this double crochet I just finished, go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that through. So it's a slip stitch. And we've created a little picot just like that, just by doing that really simple stitch. Now I do 6 double crochets, kind of working my way down the other side of this chain 7 space here at the corner. And you'll notice I will then move along and make another one of these single crochet, chain 7 single crochet sections between this corner and this corner. It'll go right here. So let's count here. If you ever need to count, go back to where you found your Pico and you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need one more. There you have it. Now I'm going to skip 2 single crochets, okay? So remember, this first single crochet right here is the single crochet that completed that chain 7 single. So then I skip 2 more, so there's 1 and 2. In the next one, that's where I want to put a single crochet, chain 7, and then a single crochet into that same stitch. You see that? Now once again, just like before, I'm going to skip all of these stitches, come all the way over here to this chain 7 space and work my 6 double crochets and then my double crochet with the picot and then 6 double crochets again. So let's get up to the picot so you can see how to do it one more time. There is 4 doubles, here's 5 doubles. Yes, I know I'm going fast, but at this point you should know how to do a double crochet. I don't feel like I need to go slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll do our 7th one. And now we do our picot. So we chain 7. Come back down here to the top of this double crochet. Don't go into the actual chain. Go into the top of the double crochet. It makes it a little bit more secure and it just works better, okay? Once you've done that, go ahead and work your 6 double crochet down the other side of this corner. Once you've done that, you carry on around the entire square just like this until all of the corners are filled up with those double crochets and the picots. Once that's complete, you join with the slip stitch to the first single crochet you completed and your square will look a little something like this. I'm going to pull this one in and set that one down. You can see here that this square is made up just like the other one. So these are my corners. Here are my picots right here. Here are my 7 chain little sections between my corners. And if I were to take my tape measure or my stitch check and set it down, I want to make sure that I'm getting 3.5 inches, okay? Now I can tell you right now, I'm getting 3 3/4 inches. Might not seem like that's that big of a deal, but it absolutely is. When you multiply that by the number of motifs we're going to be doing, you are adding so many inches to your actual garment. So even if you're over by 1/4 inch, you need to drop down a hook size and make your square smaller, okay? One thing that I do want to point out when we're talking about gauge and these squares is the first thing is your gauge is incredibly important. If you're going to use the measurements of the squares that I've already established for you, which are 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, your squares all must be 3.5 by 3.5. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, remember that the hook size is totally dependent on the way you crochet. So just because my hook size happens to be a G, you might need to drop down to an F, or it may be a really tight crocheter and you need to go up to an H. That's totally okay. It's not going to make anything wrong with your with your garment. It's more important that your squares are the correct size than the hook size you use. It doesn't matter what hook size you use. It matters what your finished result is. Okay, so you have to get 3.5 by 3.5. Now I know that this first part here, we've used scrap yarn. So don't measure this initial scrap yarn square that you've completed. This is purely just for you to get kind of used to what you're doing. Because if you're anything like me, usually the first square I make looks nothing like the next few squares I make, because the first one I'm learning on. Whereas the next one, I have the process down and they're all a little bit more uniform. That's why I wanted you to use a scrap yarn for your first one. After you feel like you've learned this good and learned this well and you're ready to move on, I do want you to go ahead and grab your Red Heart Unforgettable. You can start off with a size G hook, or if you already know you need to go down or go up, you can mess around with it, whatever works for you. And I want you to make a square out of your Red Heart Unforgettable. Once you've completed that square, I do want you to measure it, and I do want you to make sure that it's 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. That is very important. If it is not 3.5 by 3.5, you are going to have to do the math to make adjustments to your pattern. Okay, that's something that you're going to have to do on your own. And I know that a lot of you, as we're crocheting along, you don't want to mess around with the math. I've already done all the math for you. All you need to do is make sure you get the squares to be the right size. Okay, that is, I cannot express enough how important that is. I think I've said it like 6 or 7 times now. Okay, so yes, this square right here is a little bit bigger than what I want, but this is my scrap yarn square. It's actually not my scrap yarn square. It's the square that I'm using to demonstrate all of these squares for you, because I feel like the colors are nice and bright and I'm going to be able to let you see what I'm doing a little bit better. Once you get your As I mentioned, by this point you should have completed one full motif, and we will partially complete the next motif and join it to this one at this point in time. I'm going to be following along with this chart, which can be found in the link provided right down there in the video description box below. This large chart right here represents this motif. And these partial charts along these edges represent the third round of the motifs we want to join to this one. What I'm going to do today is I've partially completed a motif up through round 3, and I'm going to join this motif to this one, following along with this portion. So where I am right now in this process, I've just completed this double crochet. And so that's where I will place my hook. And I am going to go ahead and go on to my next double crochet, which is my 7th double crochet of my corner. And as I complete my picot, that's when I will join it to the corresponding picot of my finished motif. The first thing I'm going to do is get this double crochet complete. So let's go ahead and do that. And now let's work our picot. So I'm going to chain 1. And then I have a dot right here, and that dot, there's an arrow pointing to this motif. So I've chained 1. I'm going to grab my finished motif, and with wrong sides together, okay, you can see I have wrong sides together, I will stick my hook directly in to the center of that picot of the finished motif I've already done. Yarn over my hook, pull up a loop, pull that loop through the loop on my hook, and that is joined. Now I have to go ahead and chain 1, just as it's represented right here in the chart, and I will join with a slip stitch to finish off my picot. So I've chained 1, I'm going to come here to the top of my 7th double crochet for my corner and join with my slip stitch, just like I would my normal picot, okay? Now I will go ahead and finish off this corner. So I have to do 6 double crochets down this edge. Once I get down to the edge here, I will work the next section, and you'll see that's where there is another join that needs to happen. So let's get down here. Let's see, I've done this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do one more. And then that's there. So skip 2, come into this one, do my single crochet, just like I did on the first one. Now, I can see down here in the chart that it's not simply 7 chain stitches, right? I have 1, 2, 3 chains, but you can see that symbol right there is a single crochet, and it's pointing to this chain 7 that was completed on the first one. So let's go ahead and do our chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. With right side or wrong sides together, once again, wrong sides together, I will take my hook, go into that chain 7 space on the corresponding motif, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So I joined with a single crochet. If I look at my chart again, it says to do 3 chains, and then I would finish off just like I normally would on this particular portion of the motif. So I come back down here, I do a single crochet into that same stitch with that single crochet, and I move along to the next corner. So I'm over here, and this corner is going to be completed just like the last one. So I start off with my 6 doubles, and my 7th double is the one that has the picot. So here we go. I'm doing my double crochet. Now I'm ready to do my picot. As I come down here and I can look, right here is where my picot is going to go, and you can see I have a chain 1, and then there's that dot again for a slip stitch. Now this arrow is pointing over there across the way, and the reality of the matter is it doesn't matter if I join it into that one or join it into that one or join it into that one, as long as these 4 corners come together and meet as one, that will work. So for the example here, I'm going to go ahead and join to this square just like we've been going along, and then maybe when I get to that one, instead of joining into this one, I'll join over here to this. You see how that goes? The point here is that these 4 points of the corners of the picots need to come together. So I'm at the point where I will work a picot. So I will do my chain 1, and with my wrong side facing me again, I'm simply going to go into that picot that is corresponding the other motif, do my slip stitch, chain 1, and then working back to finish my picot, I'm going to do my slip stitch into the top of that 7th double crochet there, and then I complete my square. So I will do my 6 double crochets down this edge, and then I am to the end of my square, and I've joined these 2 squares together, and I am on my way to make a wonderful garment, or if I wanted to use this and work it into a blanket, I could do that. I could do anything I want. Once I work my 6 double crochets down the opposite edge, I go ahead and finish off my work with a slip stitch into that single crochet that I started off with. And when I do that, I go ahead and I finish off. So I will chain 1. I like to chain 1 before I finish off. Cut my yarn. I always leave 4 to 6 inches so that way I can weave in my ends and give it a nice tug. I'm going to move this chart out of the way. And as I set this down, you can see that without any seaming, my 2 squares are already joined together. And as I go along and create more squares, all I need to do is when I get to my 3rd round, just make sure it's to a point where it can also be joined. So I'm at a joining point here, so I could join it to this picot. When this chain 7 is made, it'll join to this one with the single crochet. When this chain 7 is made, that picot will join to this one, so on and so forth. Now you know how to do the join as you go motifs for the Marley Bird Granny Square cardigan. The next question is going to be, how many motifs do I need to do? And if you remember from watching the measurements and sizing video, you know that depending on what size you're making, you either are going to make some 6 deep and 11 wide, or 7 deep and 13 wide, or 8 deep and 15 wide. It all depends on how many squares you need to have in order to get the size you want. Having said that, make sure you have enough yarn for your completed project, and make sure it's all the same dye lot, because you really don't want to get halfway through and have to change dye lots and then half of your garment is not going to look the same. The other thing is, make it to the size you think you might need, maybe a little bit smaller, and then I will show you in the next video how we can pin the garment to make sure it is actually the size you want it to be, and you can decide if you need to add more squares or eliminate more squares or make adjustments along the way. Okay, so this is your big homework. This is a lot of homework. There are a lot of squares. Just take your time, have fun, and most importantly, make sure each square is the same size. And if you want a little tip, weave in your ends as you go. Don't wait till the very end to weave in your ends. Take the time to weave them in as you're making each square. You will be a much happier person. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you again next week. Don't forget to join the Facebook group for the Crochet Along. There's a bunch of wonderful people in there all ready to offer you encouragement and help and enthusiasm. And as all of you are making your squares, it's going to be exciting to see all of the colors come together with this wonderful Red Heart Unforgettable yarn. I'm really enjoying this adventure together, and I hope you are too. I'll see you soon. I'm Marley Bird, proud spokesperson for Red Heart Yarns. Bye guys.